12 men and women will now decide the fate of Big Island doctor Rudy Puana. He's on trial for federal conspiracy and drug dealing charges. KITV4's Paul Drews tells us about today's closing arguments and what comes next for the case.
Attorneys for and against Dr. Rudy Puana got a last chance to make impassioned pleas to the jury during closing arguments.
Closing arguments are important in the case because they serve as a refresher to the jury.
In those closing arguments, both sides agreed there were high doses and large amounts of oxycodone prescribed to close friends of Puana over many years. Those friends admitted in court they sold the oxy, some for tuition money for their kids, another for cocaine, which was then used by Dr. Puana when he partied with his friends. Government prosecutors say the oxy scheme was set up and known by Puana. The defense admits Rudy doing coke with patients is outside the usual course of professional practice, but claims he believed the patients were in pain, and that is what doctors do, help people in pain.
The government has to prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt. So the burden is on them. And it's a high burden. It's the highest burden that we have. So, of course, the defense, is always going to argue that maybe my guy did something, but they haven't proved it.
Jurors will now deliberate in a courtroom, the same courtroom where they've spent the past 3 weeks, hearing from witnesses, taking a look at evidence, and seeing lots of charts and files.
That's the jury's job, is to decide which side is more credible. And they don't have to find one side or the other more credible, but if they do, then they can convict. If they can't, then that's reasonable doubt.
In this case, all jurors must agree on a verdict for the charges against Puana.
In order to be found guilty, all 12 jurors have to be unanimous in their finding of guilt. What a lot of people don't realize, however, is that the same is true to be found not guilty.
If they can't come to a unanimous verdict, the jury is considered a hung jury and would be dismissed. Then attorneys for both sides would argue over whether they could hold a second trial.